All right, so this is the official episode 1 of the NA Happy Hour podcast. The three of us are here, Ian, Tyler, and myself, Chris. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the history of NA beverages, what they are, because I've labeled myself as the NA noob. Because I have no idea what I'm talking about, which is why I'm asking the questions.
I don't know, Chris. I don't know.
I do, however, know how to drink beer, and a
Mm.
lot of it.
Mm.
So I can be the designated taste tester. So just kind of jumping right into it, what is an NA beverage to you guys? I guess what qualifies as one, what constitutes one. Yeah.
So I guess to start off, like everyone needs to know this, and basically it's different in every area around the world. So in different countries, the laws are different. So in the U.S., a non-alcoholic beverage is technically a product that is lower, that has the ABV of less than 0.5%. And then so there's different types. You got non-alcoholic beer, you got non-alcoholic wine, which is technically called de-alcoholized wine. You have non-alcoholic spirits, and then even seltzers as well. So Ian will definitely talk about more so around his area of what those laws are, but that's how it is in the U.S.
So
Yeah.
is it just to quickly jump off that? Is it more kind of it is based on the alcohol percentage. It's not based on the brewing process. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, it's kind of had a bad rep historically of how a non-alcoholic beer, let's just say, has been produced, but it's still fermented. It's just in some manner. There's several different processes. It just has to have lower than 0.5% ABV. So it's still produced the same for the most part. So yes.
Cool. And Ian, what about
Y-
over yonder across the
Over
pond?
yonder, on the opposite side of the Atlantic. Yeah, well, like Tyler said, it's very wishy-washy. I mean, each country seems very different, but the EU kind of have given a definition that I just jumped my notes here for a second. So essentially, there's an EU directive which basically says that it's 0.5% ABV now, but up until 1984, it was 1.2% ABV, and the measurement is made at 20 degrees Celsius or 68 Fahrenheit. But again, Europe is kind of, as you know, so many different countries, so it's each country is independent. But like the UK is, from my research, which is I only went in at surface level, kind of, is that the UK seems to have the most kind of clarity when it comes to it, where it's so a non-alcoholic, sorry, alcohol-free AF is 0.05 or less, which is just trace amounts. And the reason it's not 0.00 is because there's alcohol in certain foods and stuff like juices, like bananas, yogurts. And then non-alcoholic is zero point 0.5 or less. And then low alcohol is 1.2% ABV or less.
There are actual definitive separations between non-alcoholic versus alcohol-free. It's not necessarily they're not those two are not interchangeable terms, correct?
In the UK, yeah, correct. But it's kind of, it seems to be kind of the Wild West, of, if you will, of brewing at the minute, because it's a very kind of, although you could say non-alcoholic beer has been around for 50 odd years, it's kind of a very new phenomenon,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to it. Like, for example, in France, beer sans alcohol, or which is non-alcoholic beer, or in Italy, it's called, beer, anacolica. I've just butchered the pronunciation, but the both of them are 1.2% or less, but which is very misleading for anyone who drinks 0.5 or less.
Mm-hmm.
But so each country is very different. Like in Spain as well. So where I am, there's cerveza sin, which is beer without alcohol, and it's interesting. You can mark anything under 1% as cerveza sin, but a lot of places that have 0.0 or less than 0.5 can be marked as 0.0. It just
So long
it's
as
all
it's
just
below, as long as it's below 0.5, you can
yeah.
also market it as 0.0.
Well, that's from what I've just read into it, but that's basically what it looks like from what I read today. Yeah,
To go
but
Interesting.
for that, so you'll see some, beer companies will put 0.0 on their bottles. That does not mean that it's 0% ABV. It's just a branding thing.
yeah, well, it's probably very small amounts of alcohol.
Yeah, because like non-alcoholic, so like it's more than 0%
Yeah,
ABV. Like for example, Heineken. Heineken isn't fully 0% ABV, but on their bottle it says 0.0. And yeah, I kind of want to like harp on really the difference between an alcohol-free and non-alcoholic. So usually with like an alcohol-free product, yeah, it usually doesn't go through fermentation, so it doesn't produce any alcohol. And usually those get kind of shit on because they have not as good of taste. And usually, for example, like beer, those are usually called brews. So a lot of companies who are doing, completely 0%, they'll just put flavorings together. So for example, for the IPA, you have different hops and they'll just throw things together to mimic what one would taste like. But usually what is most liked by people are non-alcoholic beers specifically. And it's the same thing with any other category, but yeah, that's kind of to be more informed on the differences between the two, because there are a lot of differences.
yeah. What's interesting? I found out in Scandinavia, which is Northern Europe. If it's quite interesting, I think it's Finland. Hold on, sorry, I keep having to refer to my notes. If you don't mind. So Finland, a non-alcoholic beverage means a beverage which contains a maximum of 2.8% volume of ABV.
Wow.
Which is incredibly high. And it's interesting. Here's another interesting one for you. In all of Scandinavia, with the exception of Denmark, all the beer stores and stuff are controlled by the government. The government have a monopoly on them. And in Denmark, in 2014, the government changed the laws to say, so not a Danish non-alcoholic beer was 0.1 or less, and they changed it to be 0.5 or less because there was people giving out about the quality and the taste.
Huh.
Yeah, it's very.
Now, do these same percentages also translate over to spirits and wine, or because spirits and wine, like whiskey, is on average like 30 to 50% ABV? Does that mean a non-alcoholic whiskey is 5% or below, or does it still, or do those things still have to, or in order to be non-alcoholic, it has to be less than like 0.05 or something percent? Is that the standard across all types of beverages, or is each beverage classified with a different limit in order to be considered alcohol free or non-alcoholic?
That's a great question. And for the US, so
I get a gold star.
my knowledge, so with spirits and beer, they're the same. But for wine, it's not. So for wine, there's no such thing as a non-alcoholic wine. It's only de-alcoholized or alcohol-free is what it'll be labeled as. So for example, you got Free. Free is one of the most popular non-alcoholic wines in the world. Mm-hmm. And you'll see on there, like cans or bottles, it'll say alcohol removed. And then somewhere on it will be like de-alcoholized of some sort. And that could be 0.05%, half of 0.05%, which I guess is technically counted as alcohol-free of my knowledge, because the way in the US it works, so you got beer, wine, and spirits, and the government is really pushing towards, healthy living and stuff. And legislation is really going towards like non-alcoholic companies. So for beer, anything below 0.5% ABV is not taxed, but that's not true with wine. So wine, since there's no such thing as a non-alcoholic wine, so it's not like 0.5% lower. Like it has to be technically counted as alcohol-free in order for it to not be taxed.
So
I'm not sure why, but
kind of going. You said something earlier, like de-alcoholized. What exactly does that mean? Like,
so I guess kind of like just alcohol removed. So usually it's done by, specifically reverse osmosis of some sort. So it's just a filtration, like a membrane filtration system.
So
Basically separates the flavoring, water, and alcohol, and then distills the alcohol at the end, and then the aroma and the water then combines at the end and makes de-alcoholized wine.
So is the wine made the same way and allowed to age like a typical Merlot or Cabernet or whatever, and then after that they then rip it out, and that's what gives it the de-alcoholized name? Is that essentially, am I understanding that right?
Yes, 100%. So usually, yeah, it's fermented. I mean, it's made the same way as normal wine, and then usually it's at the end, it adds another process that usually uses a machine to perform reverse osmosis, which then separates, the alcohol from the water and then the aroma, which then gets put together.
The bad stuff from the good stuff.
Then distillate is usually formed as well. That's the other byproduct that usually companies will sell to other distilleries or use it themselves to make an alcohol-free spirit or non-alcoholic spirit, for example.
Cool. So how did this all come about? Where it seems like now more than ever, and it could just be because I've recently jumped into this whole NA scene. Where did the modern, and I'm putting this in quotes, but where did the modern NA scene come from? Because I know like ancient times, and from social studies I'd read stuff about how they would make kind of semi wheat barley mixtures that for those times were beer, but the process has changed much. So where is the like modern NA scene come from? How did that come about?
Are you referring to the U.S. specifically, or just in general?
I mean, in general, obviously, like let's go in general, and then Tyler talk about the U.S., and then Ian talk about the EU and Irish scene, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm just assuming it's something to do with prohibition, is it? Or
well, so I mean, it's like people have used beer as a way to, for health reasons. So a lot of water has been polluted, like historically, because they didn't have a way to filter it. So a lot of people just made alcohol, and that's what they drank. So of my research, I found that it started in medieval Europe. They just used lower alcohol beer as kind of like their water in a sense, because it was not that expensive to make. It didn't take that much, to put into it to make it strong at all. And it was also healthy in a sense because it didn't have all that bacteria and all that shit that was in, the water in the first place. But so I guess to go to like the US specifically, so where the craft beer is today, it did start in Prohibition, like Ian said. So as we all know, people weren't able to make alcohol. So brewers had to find a way to, adapt to the situation. So either it could be like Yingling, which I believe turned their place into an ice cream place, I believe they produced ice cream. And then some people made non-alcoholic beer. So that's how it began. So basically these brewers would just burn off the alcohol. And that's where it pretty much started. And it kind of just built from there. And there was periods that it was not a thing at all, especially when Prohibition was over. Non-alcoholic beer wasn't a thing for the longest time until low alcohol beer started to come about, which we've all seen over the years. I mean, people are getting healthier. People don't want as much alcohol anymore. So then people just found a way to make a good non-alcoholic product. And then it's kind of just built from there. It's kind of just, it comes from, Prohibition, but it's just the community and then just the overall strive of being, better, healthier humans. That's kind of what has brought it to what it is today.
And that's kind of a general / U.S. hint to it, because obviously not every country experienced Prohibition or the dark times. So interesting.
Yeah.
What about over in Europe and?
Yeah, in Spain specifically. So Spain, there's a company in Spain called Amber, a brewery, and they actually claim to have made kind of the first what would you describe as the first commercial non-alcoholic beer in Spain? And they also claim, do you know the blue label we associate with non-alcoholic beers today?
Mm-hmm.
They claim responsibility for that as well. So they said they labeled this with this blue label, and the whole reason they done it was because they found blue was like a calming and relaxing color, and everyone just kind of just took it from that. So that's apparently what they say. But they started in like the early 70s when there was people were worried about like driving intoxicated and stuff like that, and at the time it was referred to as, was it a multi fizz, because there was no real thing for what a non-alcoholic beer was. So, and that was kind of how it started in Europe and stuff like that. And then in Germany as well, it was around the same time, or maybe just later. A lot of people involved in health and fitness, like cycling.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what, like Erdinger Alcohol Free sponsor like the German cycling team and stuff like that, and they organize cycling events and stuff. So a lot of people would have that as like a refreshing kind of drink when they didn't want to. You know, it's very hard to cycle a bike when you're drunk, so
yeah.
So they wanted to kind of.
It almost sounds like both America and, from what you're saying, in a lot of Europe, where there's a lot of similar driving forces behind why the NA scene is now growing due to health reasons, people wanting to live healthier lives and stuff like that. Would you say that the stigma towards the NA scene is the same as what it is over here in America, or is it less stigmatized? It's like, oh, you're drinking NA, whatever, versus over here it's, why the fuck are you drinking NA beer?
In Ireland,
why are you drinking beer if you're not going to get drunk? Like, what's the point?
In Ireland, it's like, if you say you're drinking NA, people are like, oh, are you sick? Are you on antibiotics? Or I think it's
so those Irish stereotypes are around for a reason, right?
Yeah. But I mean, in Spain, for example, where there's no stigma attached to it at all. It's quite common to just go into a bar and ask for a sin alcohol drink and get it. It's actually, we're really lucky over here. You can get it on draft as well.
Oh. So
it's commonplace in just about every bar on draft.
I'm waiting to see more bars around here pull up more NA options, because it's, what NAs do you have? Oh, I have a bottle of this and a bottle of that. Well, give it to me in a goddamn glass. Like, come on, guys. Like, they're growing scenes here. I think I heard where, like, seven out of 10 adults have less than 2 alcoholic drinks per week on average, I think was some statistic. It's something along those lines, where that was a shockingly high percentage, in my opinion at least, and knowing the people in my life and how much they've drank. Not that anyone's a raging alcoholic, just a passive alcoholic. And I'm kidding. But like, I was very surprised to hear that many people were 2 or less drinks per week, like alcoholic drinks. Now, I don't know if they're then substituting specifically an NA beer, or they're just having water or milk with dinner or juice or something, versus a mocktail or an NA glass of wine or de-alcoholized glass of wine.
Yes, you learn.
I better get my damn terminology correct. I'm gonna help host a podcast about this crap. Or an NA or an NA beer or something. Yeah, I know.
We'll edit that out. It's okay. We'll edit that out.
But I was just really surprised to see those numbers and the impact. But that's good to know that there's some ease of stigma. It's definitely, I think, starting to change over here, but there's still there's a lot of social perceptions that need some work.
Yeah, I mean, I say there about Ireland, but Ireland's not even that bad. I was just exaggerating. I mean, it is socially acceptable now, as well. I think it's just a change in attitude, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe the U.S. views just alcohol stuff in general differently than other countries. So I think we might think of it as more of a total negative thing. Like, I think maybe historically, maybe parents haven't taught, good drinking habits. Like, you can kind of see it with other countries. I mean, that's why they're drinking age limits are lower because I mean they just think it's socially acceptable to drink.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of science behind why not to do that, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But like in the U.S., I mean, I just think that we just think of, these beverages as just being, something you do just to get fucked up. And it's just kind of like a rebel thing to do. And I think maybe with these products coming out might bring more light to the industry. Because there's nothing wrong with drinking a beer every once in a while. And I don't know, I just think maybe the perception is just more negative towards this type of product in the U.S., which could change the stigma and how we view non-alcoholic beverages in general.
Definitely, I completely agree with that.
Do you think both of you guys living in the States, the problem is that because it's 21, it's so strict, it is strictly enforced. Obviously, it should be strictly enforced in every country, that's not what I'm saying, but do you think that that's part of the reason? It's like, yourself when you're a teenager, somebody tells you not to do something, the first thing you do is you go and you do it.
Yeah, and I think more sorry to cut you off, but I think maybe drinking came from it at a younger age is because
exactly.
So I think, to get into the age differences of like what age do you have to be to drink these beverages. So in the US, there's different states, the laws are different per state. So I mean, I have a list here of states that you can drink. If I can find it. Yeah. So states you can drink non-alcoholic beverages and be underage in the U.S. are Texas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, New Jersey, Illinois, District of Columbia, Alaska, and Hawaii. So,
well, if DC has taxation without representation, they should at least be able to have a goddamn beer if they can vote too. So, they can vote. Yeah. So, I'd just like to point out, why is it that I'm the newbie and you're drinking water and you're not drinking a damn thing? Why am I the only one drinking beer on this beer and non-alcohol related podcast? You two are disappointments.
It's fasting time here, man.
Hey, where are the pajamas at? What are we doing?
Yeah.
I put on, this is a nice brand new V-neck. I have actual shorts. I'm getting dressed up for you guys.
You had a shave as well, didn't you?
I put on real pants for you guys. I got a haircut. I shaved the beard. I'm trying to look like a decent human just for you two.
Well, I'm flattered, Chris. I'm really flattered.
I do want to go back to what we were saying with like the states. So what I think could solve the way we perceive, I wouldn't say solve, but a way we could change the stigma of just drinking.
70-mile Porter, watch out.
A way we can maybe bring more of a positive social scenario with these products is to allow people under 21 to drink non-alcoholic products. Because I mean, they can't intoxicate you, and all they do is just bring positive social scenarios. Really, I mean, alcohol has been known to ramp up people, and that's just a way for people to get together. So if you could, at a younger age, have these beverages, and have these younger kids drink these, they want to come together. They just want to have a good time, and that's usually what they use they bring alcohol to these parties. But what if they brought more positive beverages like non-alcoholic beer and shit?
Now,
I just think that could change so much of just how society views these products.
Now, just to play devil's advocate, because I love doing that. Now, do you think that if more states started to allow kids under the age of 21 to drink NA beverages, that might develop a desensitization where when they turn 21, it's, I'm used to pounding 8 NA beers. Let me crack this 120-minute IPA from Dogfish at 18 goddamn % per bottle, smash 4 of them, and now I'm waking up in the hospital after my stomach's been pumped. Do you think that there might be some, just knowing the culture in America, do you think that that's a feasible thing, or am I just spouting shit because I can?
Like a gateway drug almost to a certain extent. Yeah, sorry.
Well, there are studies done that say, I don't know them specifically, so I'm not going to just start speaking about them, but I know there's some that say that yes, it is a gateway. But there's so many ways to refute it. So if the kids are going to drink regardless. We all know that. We all know that you start drinking in high school and early in college and stuff. It's inevitable. That's just what kids do. So maybe if you teach drinking habits in more of a positive manner at a younger age, maybe it could change stuff. 'Cause I don't know. I mean, there's pros and cons because you could also think that, so say, because these non-alcoholic beverages are in the alcohol aisle. So would you want a 16-year-old walking down a fucking aisle when he sees, he or she sees different alcohol options? Like maybe that will end up turning this person into an alcoholic. Like maybe it heightens the probability. You know what I mean? But like, it's so subjective. So, I mean, if you think about it, because a lot of your future, like your actions are based upon your environment that you were in the past, So if you're around that type of stigma all the time, maybe that can make you become more of an alcoholic, like the probability. But then again, if you're around more positive social drinking, maybe not, because it teaches you more about what's important is the social scenario. You know what I mean? Just positive stuff,
and I think this whole splinter of the conversation, the same analogy can be equated to when like Grand Theft Auto first came out in the early 2000s. Like, we can't let kids play it. It's going to be a gateway thing, and kids are going to become so much more violent. It's like, well, if you talk to your children about this, and if you have these conversations, then you can fix a lot. If you have a conversation about responsible use with alcohol, and you don't deny the fact, like, okay, my kid's going to go to a party tonight. There's probably going to be booze there.
Oh no, there's definitely
yeah.
There's definitely. Don't
it'd be naive as a parent to think that like a high school party is not going to have booze in some form or another. But like, have you had a conversation with your kid about this is what it does? You have to watch your limits. This is what will happen if you don't watch your limits, and just be responsible. And also develop. I've seen people like develop those communications where they have a friend where it's like, hey, I'm going to a party, and it's their one friend who texts them every couple hours like, hey, are you still good? Are you okay? Or the whole thing of like the parents being able to create a comfortable environment where it's, if you call me and tell me to come pick you up, I don't care if it's 2 a.m. No questions will be asked. I'll pull up, you get in the car, we go home, and that's it. You're not in trouble. I don't care if you're drunk. You're not in trouble. You're not grounded. Nothing. You did the responsible thing, and I think if more conversations happen like that, then there's a possibility to eliminate some of the gateway drinking type of thing.
Maybe, yeah. I think it's
again. I'm just throwing. Projecting word vomiting because I think it makes me sound
we could sit here all day talking about it, but I think it's very subjective, I just think like I'm just of the opinion that teenagers being what they are, young adults being what they are, being rebellious by nature, when you're told to don't do something, you just you go and you do it. And one thing I noticed about when I was doing a bit of research this afternoon was in Germany, it seems to be drinking seems to be third in what you can do. So at the age of 14, I think you can drink. It seems to be, it goes from 14, 16 to 18, and the older you get, the stronger the levels of alcohol you seem to be able to drink,
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're onto something there,
And I think at some point there's science involved. So like we could look at,
Oh yeah, there's science, there's
your brain's still developing. And
alcohol, 100%.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not denying that.
Yeah. So I mean, and then also with this situation, so you gotta think of like, why do kids drink? I mean, they just want that stigma. They want that stimulus of something fun and crazy that brings
because
adrenaline.
They think it's cool, and some do it for rebellious reasons. And
exactly, is that wrong? I mean, in my opinion, not really. You just experience life. But then how can non-alcoholic beverages bring that type of, can it? Maybe not. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like why would they give a fuck to drink it? Because they've never had a beer in the first place, so they might think like, oh, I need to have a beer to even think if I want to have this. But then a lot of people now are thinking that they're completely different things. Like non-alcoholic beer isn't the same as normal alcoholic beer. They're completely different categories.
Is it still beer? And I mean, I wonder if that's almost a perception down to the individual, where it's, how do you define beer? What is beer to you?
This would be technical, so I guess that is subjective, but I think it would be something that ferments. But still, so like brews don't have to ferment; they're just flavored beers, kind of. But a beer, I mean, that's what's beautiful about the craft beer industry, is because it's always changing. There's always something new. So whoever's saying that that's not, a thing, like that's just.
Let's
that's
throw
pretty-
marshmallows and Rice Krispies in this and call it a dessert stout. Or let's put maple syrup in this and call it an oatmeal maple breakfast porter and have it with pancakes. Like
We should patent these ideas, guys. This is
Dude, pancake beer sound fucking sick.
throw
man.
some maple syrup in that. Ooh.
Dude, peanut butter.
Look
you ever
up
put peanut
look
butter
up
in
sweet
pancakes?
sweet baby Jesus by Duclaw. They have a chocolate peanut butter stout.
You said Sweet Baby Jesus?
Sweet baby Jesus by Duclaw Brewing. It's essentially like a Reese's peanut butter cup,
Oh my.
but in
Wow.
beer form.
I want to know the calories on this bed.
Just for our viewers and listeners, that is an alcoholic beer. Do not go out and buy that thinking it is non-alcoholic.
That's 6.5%.
Yeah. And I mean it's heavier too because you have the chocolate and the peanut butter both weighing it down, plus it's a darker beer, plus it's 6.5%. Yeah, so you're only having, and it's pretty sweet too, so you're only having one, maybe two, depending on your tolerance for sweetness, but
Or bulk season, right?
or bulking, yeah. When you do an extra set of planks, because plank or die.
I'm just waiting for the day somebody makes like a protein, like I don't know, a beer from whey protein or something. I think that could be
I mean, there's already kind of stuff like that already. I mean,
really.
you got Well-Being. I mean, they're electrolyte-filled beer, which is labeled as, the
And
healthiest beer ever or something of that sort.
That was the
Sam Adams 26.2. It's made. There's extra salts, certain types of salts that are added to it to give you more electrolytes. Designed kind of like the alcoholic version of athletic brewing, where where athletic is the non-alcoholic, like for athletes, essentially by athletes, as the pre-workout, post-workout, hangout beer. This 26.2 is lower alcohol compared to a lot of other beers, and it has salts to help with recovery, actually. And it was made, because Sam Adams is brewed in Massachusetts, and it was made kind of in honor of the Boston Marathon, which 26.2 miles is 26.2 for the name.
It's a new brewery. It's called Marathon Brewing. They actually started that, and that
As a subsidiary, yeah. There's also a starting line brewing out in Hopkinton, Mass, at about a mile from the start line of the marathon, and then you have Sam Adams on the other side. But yeah, exactly. They started a subsidiary of Marathon Brewing.
Heavenly Body, isn't that? Sorry, that's the name of the Well-Being Brewing, isn't it? Is it Heavenly Body or Heavenly something? I tried it last summer. It was it's Heavenly. I think it's called Heavenly Body.
I'm not sure, but it was known as like their flagship right away. That's kind of what they were known for.
No, it came out afterwards, didn't it?
I mean, I don't know. It was like one of their first beer, like the ones that, like the beer that's filled with electrolytes, like purposely.
Yeah. What's it called?
I don't know what it's called. I mean,
I
personally,
can remember. It's a 440 ml can. It had an angel on it. Yeah, it was a white kind of can. I think it was like Heavenly Body or something like that.
the name.
Something. I'll come back to you because I remember ordering online last summer and trying it.
Yeah.
So I do want to change gears a little bit and get more into your guys' specific wants and what you guys enjoy with the scene. We've talked a lot about the history and what is NA and all that stuff, but let's go over to like tell me a little bit about like some of your favorite brews, why you like them. Is it just beer? Have you done the mocktails? What are your favorite mocktails that you enjoy and recipes and stuff like that?
Ian, how was you go, man. You go.
All right. Yeah, so I find when you're out, I'll just start this kind of mocktail rant I have. I find sometimes, depending on where you are and what you get with a mocktail, is it's very kind of like, there's not more when you're out with your mates and your mates are having actual cocktails and they look very authentic. And then you order this mocktail and it's like this pink, disastrous looking thing comes towards you, and it's like something you give a child, and I think you just automatically look and feel out of place. So I think when it comes to not drinking, like and drinking NA. You can go to some bars and you can get a nice NA cocktail, but generally the standard of alcoholic cocktail is here and the standard of NA cocktail is here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I try to avoid them, and they're very sweet as well. I mean, they're nice sometimes, though, you know.
I think the better ones have to be sparkling. There has to be some form of carbonation, because you always hear me, because those are the best types of non-alcoholic, or I guess alcohol removed wines are the sparkling ones. So anything with carbonation really helps, you know, make it bitter and kind of hide that more flat taste in general. So it kind of brings out more aroma as well as hides it. So I found like that's what I like, especially with mocktails. So I mean, I don't like sugar in general, so I try not to drink mocktails because usually it's mixed with fruits and all that stuff. But like wine, for example, I mean, I love Free. Especially their canned rosé, it's sparkling, and it's pretty fucking good. Like it just smells, and the mouthfeel, everything, the taste tastes so similar to what a rosé should and does taste like. And I just find it just quite amazing. But other than that, there's not that much there.
Do you think there's a want for that in that market, or do you think that it's the way things are going? Beer kind of. I mean, beer is clearly the dominant force in that. Do you think that a line of mocktails could make its way, like reasonable mocktails? Because as Ian said, like I've gone to dinner with people who've had mocktails, and it has been this like cheeky pink, like it looks like they
it's like something give a shot.
Looks like they dumped a highlighter into it, and it's what is this? It's like I'd rather have a virgin rum and coke.
No, I think, to be honest, sorry.
And so I'm just saying, like, because I have this, what is it, zero proof whiskey or something, and I made an old fashioned last week out of it, and I had the cherry, I mulled the sugar. I guess it was low alcohol. It wasn't alcohol free because I did still use the Angostura bitters. So technically it wasn't alcohol free, but it's such a minimal amount. And then I mulled everything together, did the cherries, the orange peel, the whiskey, all that stuff. And it wasn't bad. So do you think that there might be a potential for a market like that, given what you've seen?
I think I don't mean to go off on NA cocktails. There are some great ones out there. I think if you go to a specific, maybe
you've just blacklisted an entire set of our viewers, Ian.
Yeah, sorry.
Or we've been blacklisted. You've blacklisted us. We're out. Don't think of asking anyone for sponsors.
No, I think there's like if you go to a good cocktail bar, you'll always get a good NA cocktail. I think, but I think if you're out in just a restaurant with your mates and it's not a kind of that's not something they do. It's definitely you can see a difference. Like or for example, having gone to Getaway in Brooklyn and the Virgin Mary Bar in Dublin, you do get amazing NA cocktails there, and they do kind of have a good selection of beers as well. And I just think I'm just kind of more prone to beers than cocktails in general. I kind of prefer the savory than to the sweet. But no, I think that rant I went on was a bit. I shot everyone down. I shouldn't have done that, but no, there's a lot of good out there. I just think some certain places, if they up their game, it's great.
Yeah. Are there any? If you looked at a menu for either of you, if you looked at a menu of mocktails, would there be one type? Like if I saw an old fashioned, that would grab my eye, similar to the way I shop for wine, where it's that label's cool. Like, would you, if you saw like an old fashioned or a hurricane or a Manhattan that was a mocktail, would you say or consider trying that versus like you go up to the bar and you say, I'm alcohol free, can you make me a mocktail? Like, are there some that you would immediately go after?
There's probably my favorite one is there's one in the Virgin Mary Bar in Dublin called Tiki Street. And they had another one called Tiki Street. I think it was Tiki Street. And they had another one, a really nice sweet one called Dessert Anyone. And I know it just said I'm not a big sweet guy, but I think one or two of this Dessert Anyone, and they were so good.
What's in it?
Just like I can't remember off the top of my head, but it tasted the part if nothing else. And I looked the part as well. So
nice. Tyler, what about you?
See, I don't think I would honestly order one, in my opinion. Just the way like my lifestyle is, like I would prefer just to have, for example, just wine or beer. I'm not a big
Do,
fan of.
do you guys think? Sorry to cut across you. Do you think there's a certain stigma to a man drinking cocktails?
Oh yeah,
I think it depends
yeah.
on the cocktail. A whiskey has more of a proper classical traditional, like a whiskey and a cigar is a very classical and now like classically modern look, like the gentleman's look
Yeah,
versus or like a martini or something, but I won't order a sex on a beach or like other stuff like that
no,
type of stuff because there is, yeah, I think
I
a stigma.
I think there is. I mean, I've certainly, if I've ever had a mocktail or anything like that, I've just owned it and said, "Oh yeah, having this pink fluffy mocktail," and I've just owned it. I think that's something you just have to do, you know. But I can't see how people would say there's a stigma to it, you know.
Yeah. An interesting thought with that. I feel like the stigma has lessened because it's non-alcoholic. So I feel like non-alcoholic is more of like an equal opportunity. Like everyone's the same because they're so different, and a lot of people. I mean, it's the same. So I feel like no matter the gender, it's a free for all. Like everyone's so new to it. It's such a new thing, and that's kind of what's beautiful about it because we all, appreciate each other. We all know like the stories, etc., and why we drink them, why we enjoy them. And I feel like it's just more, I don't know. I just feel like it's different than someone who just drinks alcohol looking at someone who's drinking alcohol free, and especially if it's a cocktail. I think if, you know what I mean? What I'm trying to give off with that, like I think it's just more of an equal opportunity type of thing. I don't think that's the right way to say that, but I think just the way it looks, it's different. There's different stigma with it.
And I think but I do think if you level the playing field, so you're in a room of people who are all NA drinkers, and you order, kind of going back to what you started talking about, like if you're a man ordering a cocktail, like if you're in a room full of NA drinkers, and a guy walks up with a like blue Ciroc or Curacao cocktail, like bright blue or a bright pink, like they might get like a fair play to that, but okay.
This guy.
Versus if I walked by with an old fashioned, it's, oh, what's up, dude? Like, I think I think that comes back to that's a whole other like larger issue with like fragile masculinity and all that stuff. Which, for my own sanity, let's not go down that road, please.
Yeah, we're getting really
back to the NA scene.
Yeah, Jesus, we're opening the floodgates here now.
Yeah, let's close them back up. So like what do you look for in your favorite drink? Like, why are some of your favorite beers or wines your favorite? Is it the tasting profile? Is it the notes? Is it the company is environmentally conscious and promotes a healthy lifestyle, like something like Athletic, or just are there specific tasting notes? And I guess that kind of gets more into style of like your favorite style, but like what are some of your things? I know I love a good IPA. I'm a sucker for a double dry hopped anything. You could double dry hop a tennis shoe and I'd probably drink it. So I go after the DDH stuff all the time. But yeah, what about you guys?
I guess I'll go. You want me?
Yeah, for away.
So I guess specifically with wine, I mean, in general, I like more bitter things. I don't like too much sweet because it reminds me of sugar, and I'm not a sugar guy. So like wine specifically, I like sparkling wine, like 100%. Just rosé. I mean, that's kind of what's in right now. Or like prosecco. I think that's how you pronounce that, correct? Yeah.
Prosecco, yeah.
And yes, rosé.
Is Riesling also in that category, or am I?
Riesling's a dessert wine, a sweet wine, isn't it?
Yeah.
A German.
I think it's
wine.
dry, right? Isn't it? There's different forms of Riesling. I think.
Oh,
I think there's different types. I mean, I mean, wine's pretty insane because it's all, there's different. There's dry. There's wet. There's different types. But, and then for beer, and I guess specifically in wine, I always go to Free, 100%, because they produce the best wine in my opinion. I guess the other one, it's Ariel. but I don't think they even make a sparkling wine. If they do, I
I've
don't know
seen
much.
that, and I've never tried Ariel, but I've seen it. Like
See,
in
I
the
personally
stores.
have it, and it's de-alcoholized. It's just there's problems. Like it just doesn't have the same mouthfeel. I'm not a sommelier, so I mean,
Yeah.
I can't just start listing off things. But it just something is gone. You know, I mean, in the process, something is removed, and you can definitely tell. And if it was maybe bubbly, it would be different. But yeah, for wine, rosé, and then beer, 100% with you, Chris. I love hops. I'm a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
Anything of that sort, I'm just a big fan, especially for athletic brewing. So the Freeway is my favorite
Yeah.
non-alcoholic beer. Athletics definitely my favorite company in general. Branding. So I do look for branding. Is because I mean that's what's usually around me more because I follow it.
Mhm.
So more ads are coming at me. That makes me buy their products more. I mean that's just simple marketing. But they do have the better products. But some other companies. I mean I'm a big Bravos Brewing fan. I like Bravos Brewing. I think they're such a sleeper.
Where's
And
that?
I believe it's California.
Okay.
California. Yes. They have some great beers. I like their oatmeal stout. Their oatmeal stout's fire. And yeah, so that's kind of what I go for. I'm kind of all over the place. I'm just playing the fields really, but I do love some hops.
Nice. Ian, what about yourself?
Yeah, I like dark beers, and it's strange. I like dark beers, but I'd be fond of an IPA as well. But do you know what I actually really like is, have you guys tried out from Mikkeller in Denmark?
See, no, we don't have that here. At least
Oh,
what
guys,
I've
come
seen.
on.
I mean, it has to be somewhere. But I've seen them, and honestly,
here's the deal. In the next 2 months, Ian, I'm gonna give me your top list of American NA beers that you want that you can't get in Europe.
We do.
I'll put a case together. You put a
Right.
case together of the beers that you think I need to try from Europe, and we'll just swap.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll swap a case of beer.
then I drive to
Absolutely.
Baltimore to try some of those.
I mean, I've heard crazier ideas.
So Mikkeller are really, they're always just doing really interesting stuff like blueberry Flemish primitive. I tried the other day. It was nice. It was just the texture. It was very smoothie like. But they've have an American wheat ale, drinking the sun, and it's really fresh. And then they have a winter one, drinking the snow, and it's a bit more kind of savory, say. And yeah, so they're always doing really interesting beers and stuff like that. So
What's your flagship?
Sorry?
What's your flagship?
They're not completely alcohol free. They're just this kind of microbrewery that kind of do a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say Drinking the Sun is definitely the most popular I've seen around in Ireland and stuff like that.
Nice.
So yeah, but I do like dark beers as well. So like Tyler said, the Bravos, the oatmeal stout,
Mm-hmm.
or a Nirvana stout is really good as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm starting to come around to the darker beers. I used to be just strict the like Hells, the lagers, the pilsners, the wits, the wheats, the IPAs, the stuff like that, and I'm trying to force myself to be more open-minded about beer, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic. Like I don't want to rule anything out, and I just want to try everything. I don't know if my credit score can handle that, but
so your heart is in the right place.
And I was surprised to learn that Florida actually has some of the best stouts in the country versus like the Pacific Northwest has some of the best like IPAs and like lighter beers, which you would think a place like Florida would do the lighter beers, in a place that's cold and frigid, getting 8 feet of snow every year, like Seattle would do the darker beer. So that kind of caught my attention a little bit. But
I wonder why. I wonder if it's because people get used to the situation, so they want the opposite. Maybe I think it's that appeal. You always want the opposite of what you're normally.
You always want what you can't have.
Yeah, and then once you get what you want, you don't want it anymore.
But like, what? So what are some things like I I know when I taste certain beers, I'm looking for certain flavor profiles, but I've also seen like had people try a beer that they completely disagree. It's like, no, this doesn't taste like orange at all. This is a lot more sour. This is grapefruit. Like, what do you think the kind of range is on individual taste profiles? And yeah, there's like the cicerones that have. Did you just break your chair?
What the?
Yeah,
Ian's like,
the
I'm
back screwed
fucking
off.
pissed, bro.
The back screwed off. I don't know
Like they're the
No, it's
cicerones that have like the refined palate. But like I've disagreed with the cicerones before about what flavors I taste. Like, am I wrong in that? Like, if I don't taste coffee, like how much stock can you really invest in? Proverbially, like invest in that of like, oh, this is a. I'll use like Sweet Baby Jesus. This is a peanut butter chocolate Bach. It's like, okay, I taste coffee, but I don't taste peanut butter or anything else. Like, how much can you even really take that at its will, or is that just complete arbitrary crap?
I think it's crap in the sense of for non-alcoholic products because they're completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think the best way to treat it is like its own individual thing, but it's inevitable if you've tried beer, comparing it, and I guess these non-alcoholic beers are trying to mimic some in a sense. But I think the best way is to think of it as its own and try to. It's different, and I feel like I don't know. A lot of people think there's specific ways of how you have to describe the beer, what it's supposed to taste like. I think what's beautiful is non-alcoholic beverages is not always like that because they're so new. It's such a new. It's like the craft of craft, in my opinion, and it's still growing. And I don't know. I think that's kind of what's beautiful about it. So I think no one's palate is correct. You know what I mean? I mean that's with anything, even with alcoholic products.
Yeah.
But
And I mean, obviously, there's some that are like, there is definitely orange in this, and everybody will say there's orange in. So is it more kind of like a jumping off point of like, here are some of the flavors that we infused during the process that we hope you taste type of thing? Would that be a fair way to look at it? Like, Ian, I know you've done a lot of beer reviews. Like, is that a fair way to describe that versus you should be tasting this? It's here's what we think you'll taste and what we hope you taste type of thing. Is that anything?
Yeah, I find it's more suggestive than being pushed at you, you know. But I find like it wouldn't be hard to tell one beer from the other, particularly when it comes to like bigger kind of companies and breweries. Which is one complaint I did have about Spain was that you can get, if you walk into a supermarket, you can probably see 40 to 15, 16 different NA beers from big Spanish breweries, but they're all pretty much the same. I mean, it's great selection, but it's, if you've, in my opinion, was probably a bit narrow-minded, but if you've had one, you've had them all, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I even when I'd be typing up reviews, some weeks I'd be saying, oh God, this looks like the review I put up on Tuesday. And I'd like, oh, this looks like the review I put up on last Friday. And it almost looks like a carbon copy of one to the other.
Yeah.
But I do think, yeah, it's... Another thing I have is, have you ever noticed, you know the way they say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find sometimes you can tell by looking at the can or the bottle of a beer that it's not going to taste as nice as...
Just don't judge a beer by its label type of thing?
Don't judge a beer by its label. Do you think that's a thing, or?
I mean, yeah.
I'll say it's true with wine, because I've bought some wine that has a really cool label and it ends up tasting like absolute garbage.
But all that, the thought process behind it's so faulty because it's so, I mean, it's just dependent. Because if someone does have a really good wine that had a really shitty label, then they're gonna be like, okay, label doesn't matter. But then some people have the different experience.
Well, it's very subjective.
Yeah, it's so subjective. But like the best ways to go about it, as like you're a little kid, never, you know, like touch the oven before to see if it's hot, and that's kind of like the best way to go about it. Because yeah, I think especially with non-alcoholic products, you don't know. Like maybe it could be the best thing or the most, like probably the worst thing you could try. Like there's different, you know what I mean? Like maybe that's the best way to go about that.
Lots to
Yeah,
think.
But yeah,
back was silent.
So yard work, eh?
In the yard work.
Yeah,
But,
more yard work.
Yeah, my name was Bob in college.
I mean,
Back
one
to-
last thing that I wanted to talk about was, do you guys have any like really funny stories about like introducing people to the NA scene? I know my favorite one to tell is a couple years ago when we were on vacation. I was sitting on the beach doing absolutely nothing because that's what you do on the beach. Um, and I was talking about athletic. It's like, no, it tastes like a beer and it pours like a beer. It looks like a beer. And my friend was like, complete horseshit. Like, fuck off. I'm not trying that. I have no desire to do that. So I tricked them, and later that night I brought over a beer in a koozie so they couldn't see the label. And I said, here, try this. I got it on my drive up. And they tried it and they said, oh, it's really good. What is it? And I said, it's that non-alcoholic beer you were shitting on about 3 hours ago. And they were like, whoa, what? So that's one of my favorite stories to tell, with the whole non-alcoholic thing, where it's people immediately have this almost visceral reaction of like, no, it's going to be terrible. It's like, but just try it. It's not as bad as you think it is. So do you guys have any stories like that that you can share?
Kind of, yeah. So one of my best mates from the last 2 summers, his name was Cullen, and we were roommates when we were working in New York together, and we're still very good mates now, thankfully. But we would go out every kind of Sunday night and Monday night because we had Monday and Tuesday off work.
Mm-hmm.
And so this Sunday night we all went out, and obviously everyone was dying the next day or whatever. And so somehow, anyway, the next day Monday comes around and we end up going out again. And Cullen is really, he's really, really hungover. Like he's rattling, right? He's really shaking, and he's like,
I've been there.
He's like, I'm never drinking again. I'm never drinking again. So it's
like,
oh,
24 hours later, you're downing shots on it.
Yeah. So he was like, I was like, go on, just have a Heineken Zero then if you want. He says, yeah, I think I will. So then he's like, I'll try it. And of course, everyone in the pub is, because they know him, this is the local where everyone goes, and they just start giving him stick, like, you're copying your mate. Look at you copying your mate. Look at and it's like, everyone's just giving him so much stick because of he was known for drinking a lot, and all of a sudden it was like he turned himself off drinking for 24 hours.
He was known for drinking like a fish, and then he's going. That's funny. That's really good.
But no, yeah, it was kind of funnier though.
That's awesome.
It kind of how you had to be there, But it was. I probably saw the short, but it was funnier at the time. I hope.
Well, you had to be there.
What about you, Mr. Marker?
Yeah.
So I guess mine's more of like a great story. Like like a lady named Susie Storm, as all of us know. So I kind of introduced non-alcoholic beverages to her. I had this giveaway. She ended up winning, and I sent her some free beers of her choosing. And for her, so she was a past alcoholic. I'm not going to get into specifics by all means. But she had a strong passion for craft beer. And she was just first introduced to these non-alcoholic beverages once I sent them to her. And she kind of started to fall in love with, that passion that she had with it, and still had more of a positive, mindset going into it, knowing that, hey, I'm still sober. I can experience this thing that I used to love. Mm-hmm. And just me introducing that to her, I mean, it's kind of like why I do what I do. Like, that's kind of why I'm in this, is just that love and community. And it's just a cool impact. And seeing it, you always know that, these beverages do impact people, but literally seeing it, and then now we're all really good friends with her. And I don't know, I just think that's pretty fucking cool. And yeah, I just think that's probably one of the best things that I've ever done with these beverages.
That's awesome. Whereas
excellent.
Ian and I are making fun of people, and you're being all sentimental.
Yeah.
So the cynical assholes of the podcast are.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's. So do you guys have any final notes on the kind of intro of finishing up, I guess, the intro of us and what we like, and the intro of the NA world on the podcast? Do you guys have any final notes for the viewers, the listeners, the void of the internet?
I guess, I mean, the thing that ended on is just be open. I mean, like, especially with craft beer, I mean, what's the beautiful thing about craft is it's forever changing. There's always different cool shit. And I think definitely like a niche inside a niche. And these beverages are nothing to sleep on. And just the whole market in general is insane. And it's like a TV show. That's why I'm watching it. And it's just completely evolving and it's always going up and up and up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something to not sleep on, definitely. That's kind of how I want to end it. I think we covered just about everything I ever thought about covering for an intro, probably a little bit too much.
Yeah, yeah. I think, Jesus, I didn't expect it to go on this long, but look, that's not a bad thing, you know.
I mean, Ian. What about you? Are there any final thoughts that you want to throw out into the void?
Well, firstly, if anyone has listened to us for this long, thank you.
Honestly, great point.
Exactly. If you've been able to tolerate our voices for this long, or if you're watching on YouTube, if you've been able to tolerate our faces and voices for this long, extra props to you. Let me know. I'll send you some beer. But
I don't think so. I just think this is our first episode, and it's hopefully things can only get better, and we'll aim to improve. But as Tyler says, I think people, especially drinkers, like, need to be more open-minded to it, and you know, I do think you're always going to come up against that. Like, I don't know. I was telling Tyler this a few weeks ago, Chris. I don't know. I was telling you about when you hear people and they always say, "Oh, NA beer, it's like kissing your sister. It tastes the same, but it's just not right." And you're like, "Oh,
wait, when you tell me that."
I thought
that's hilarious. It's like kissing your sister, but it's not right.
Incest joke.
Yeah, and like you see people commenting on it and stuff on Facebook as well. It's like, you're like, "Oh, Jesus."
That's a good one though. That's funny. I'm not gonna ask.
Well, but that's, and you kind of, that's the approach you're up against with some people, and it's you don't want to be that guy. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the guy that brags about kissing his sister. You know.
Yeah. I mean,
but I think overall, I'd encourage anyone to give it, any beer lover out there, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, I'd encourage them to.
And again, I would
be a bit more open-minded with it. It's because it's come on leaps and bounds in the last few years, especially.
I'd also say, if you're a beer lover and you like beer and like the taste of it, I would almost say you're doing yourself an injustice if you're marginalizing this whole area. Like, you literally have nothing to lose. It's not like you're taking a shot of this random liquor that your friend says you should try, and that's one less drink you can have that night. You have nothing to lose to just try it. So yeah, definitely but all in all, I mean, the keg's tapped on the podcast and beer's flowing. So beer's cold, beer's flowing.
Yeah.
And
here we go. Thanks for putting up with us for this long.
And we'll see you at next week's happy hour.